All right.
All right, everyone, welcome back to our show. This is Between Two Problems, a special edition of the Three-Body Problem here on the show floor at Ekoparty in Miami with a special guest traveling all the way from Buenos Aires, very well known, and a repeat guest on this podcast, Federico Kirschbaum. Now with a new gig at XBOW. Let's start right there. What's going on?
Well, thank you for having me. I like being part of the problem as well.
You're part of the problem.
I want to be part of the problem, not just among them. So yeah, I'm excited to join XBOW. I joined 3 weeks ago as their head of security lab. And people who have... I'm getting corrected on
Gabe is giving us show notes from the
more
side.
Closer. Yeah. Higher?
Hi.
No, that's fine.
Welcome to the problem.
Welcome to the problem. I am the problem with the mic.
Between two problems.
So, yeah, Nico Weissman is running XBOW.
He's a CISO over there. Right?
He's a CISO, but it's a longtime friend and a long-time visionary on, offensive work. Mm-hmm. He has come, I know him since we were kids. We're adversaries, I would tell it. And
what kind of adversaries are we talking about?
We were like different threat actors. He was one and I was the other while we were kids.
Nico's got like super villain energy. Like he could do it if he wanted to. Like he's a super nice dude, don't get me wrong. But if you're thinking of him as an adversary, I'd be
like you want to play chess.
You respect him, yeah.
You want to play chess with him.
Exactly.
So when Nico tells you about something, you pay attention,
right?
And it's unavoidable that offensive word, and we can see it in content, we can see it in Twitter, that it's moving, it's shifting. And when Nico told me about XBOW and I was watching, like, hey, we want to make hacking still happen, And yeah, this idea of concentrating research and advancing offensive work, which I complain a lot, and being part of the solution, yeah, sure. Not being the problem, maybe, or at least creating other type of problems.
Right.
But yeah.
So back up for the audience just for a little bit.
Sure.
What is XBOW? What is the space you're in? What is the goal and the mission of the company?
Perfect. XBOW tries to change how pentest is done, right? Pentest has been an area where there were almost no products. There were always products that aid pen testing.
Right.
Like defensive history goes back to the, I would say, early 2099 when we put scanners for people so we can scale operations. Mm-hmm. Where XBOW, like if we come now, they try to get real vulnerabilities with impact. That means creating validated wounds using LLMs. So at XBOW, we are trying to make an AI hacker that can detect and exploit real vulnerabilities. So people don't have the talent in their companies can find those problems.
Look, I'm sorry, brother. You're saying we're trying. Having topped the HackerOne bug bounty charts and everything, I think you guys are succeeding in doing it, right? Like it's and not to parse terms, but I'm saying like there's a lot of companies that would like to try. You guys have been coming out with like some pretty big results out the gate. So I think, at least in my view, there's XBOW and a couple of other companies, and then the rest might as well just like fade into oblivion, right? Like we're looking at XBOW as the example of what's going to happen with that space.
XBOW started 2 years ago when people were a little bit wary on, can LLM find bugs? Mm-hmm. Are they going to hallucinate their way in? And so we got a great head start. The idea of having another way to find and exploit problems in an autonomous way where judgment is done by LLMs, it's an amazing work. And there is something that I find super interesting. The tradecraft of a pen tester, of a hacker, like what are the reasons how you would solve this problem? You can see it on the XBOW traces. So you can follow how it found the bug, how it would use a primitive to get some information out and increase the impact of the bug. So it's watching an adversary that is not human. It's not taking the same decisions that you would take. And that's something that, as a fan of hacking and seeing how other people do their work, seeing non-human work.
Right.
It's weird and it's amazing.
But is that visible just to you guys, or is it visible to like a customer?
No, it's the customers can see it.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Because for us, the most important part, it's not just finding the bug, is that you understand why we found it and how we found it and how we exploit it.
Right.
So I'm writing some pieces called Tales of the Trace, where we cherry pick things that we find doing benchmarks, which us and all the pentesting team who has decades of pentesting work, we sit down and see the trace, like why, how it decided to make that pivot, how they excited to get that, credentials from AWS and then take over that.
Right.
So customers can see it all.
How much are there humans in the loop? And where, in your opinion, in this future of pen testing, the humans in the loop would be most relevant? Is it during the reconnaissance and setting up the test? Is it on the back end, validating findings, triaging things? Where do you see the value of humans in that loop? Because you're automating everything, but not everything well, let me ask it this way. Do you always need a human in the loop? And where in that loop is the human most relevant?
So there are many initiatives. There are types that are more mature than others, and I'll start with the less mature ones, right?
And it doesn't have to be XBOW specific, but your thoughts on the pen testing space in general.
So when we entered, one of the people that got in as well, it is Andres Luxemburg, also called the Polaco. Highly background
the Pole
on
would be.
Highly background on professional exploit writer, and he and the LLM found an Exim bug, and we reported because in these times the compression of reporting and exploit is really fast, and they gave us a 7-day time frame of saying, like, in 7 days we will go public. So we had two choices: either just keep the CV, or try to exploit. And since we were developing the exploit native, which is the binary exploitation, I could see him, a professional craftsman, and the LLM race to see who would found the exploit. It's not finding the bug; it's actually exploiting a modern service with ASLR bypass.
Right.
And it is super interesting how different paths change. In that case, we wrote a blog post where how the AI did some advances really, really fast and compressed the time, as Juan told in their keynote. But other things that you need some craft knowledge and specific focus. So for some things, LMs will help you advance really, really fast. And in 7 days, we did a work for something that would took maybe more people and a month or two to have the same results. But with AI, we did it in 7 days. So that was my kickstart at XBOW. Definitely blew my mind.
That was the start.
That was the start.
Right. I found myself sort of sitting here and like scribbling some notes because I've been talking a lot about like the importance of human deep expertise in steering the models and how much they take on this tedious work. But something that I'm hearing in what you're describing that I hadn't really considered is how interesting it is for domain experts to read through the choices the model makes in doing the thing they know about, right? So okay, sorry if I'm coming slowly at the thing that you already understand very well, but the notion, I'm curious how much surprise and perplexity there is on the side of the human experts being like, oh, holy shit, look at the way that it chose to do this thing that we've done a million times. We know why we need to do it, but it did it in like a totally different way. And like, we're not hearing too much about that. Like, what people keep saying is, yeah, there's all these vulns, but we haven't seen new categories of vulns. We're not seeing it come up with like net new stuff. And I think that very quickly dismisses the amount of possible innovation because it's maybe too low down the stack. It's more where experts might appreciate it and not like the full scope of an exploit. But are you guys seeing that, or is it more like, no, it just does all the things we normally would do, right?
I'm seeing new tradecraft coming in, like new ways of exploiting known bugs. And I think it's a mixture of different techniques that you might not apply because that's not the direct path. But seeing the judgment and the reasoning while it's exploiting something, at least for me, it was new. I come from a traditional offensive work, more classic methodology, but seeing in real time how it tries to solve or even hits a wall, but it starts connecting different pieces to a one serious bug, definitely has changed. As Ryan was saying, like how much people are involved in this. All the scanning and discovery of bugs, it's LLM-based. And there are type of bugs that have chances to be more experimental,
Even that discovery requires a human knowing to ask the right question? Or are we just saying, find me a vulnerability in Exim? Like just a generic prompt that anyone can do. And I'm curious to see where the human becomes the most super
Ryan's on the side of the humans, like very strongly here. He's trying to keep humanity in.
No, I'm trying to understand. Where we play. Or are we just going to push the computer and press a button and get something on the back end that patches it? Like,
so what I think XBOW has accomplished, and this is almost as an outsider because I'm a month in. They grab models and they grab ways when people didn't thought it was possible. So they have a good instinct on how to make LLMs find those bugs. And they have tried really, really hard to be able to get this in a really high signal, low false positives strategy. And there are type of bugs that you can get feedback. A server-side request forgery, you can get a remote code execution, you get something back. Whereas there are some that is like more of a cache poisoning, and you need some people if that it's true or not. But I would say most of them high signal bugs are found in an autonomous way. And this is mainly web, right? Where they have the expertise. Where you go to native, it is a mix of strategies. It is having different agents to find different stuff, and then it's defining the vuln, and the other thing it's exploiting the vuln, which are completely different strategies. Because normally to get a proper exploit, you need a number of bugs, different primitives
to take stuff together.
Yeah.
Where is XBOW having its most successful run? Is it in the web app space? Is it it's the web app pen testing space?
Yes. I would say the sphere of XBOW, it's web. It's where most of the applications of corporations are there. Also,
and the idea is to sell to someone who is not a professional hacker that can just, like, what is the sweet spot of who the ideal customer would be?
I think that's the idea, but right now our customers are pen testers who are overwhelmed with work, and they are managing several pen test companies, traditional manual pen test companies, and they need a way to scale their ops. At the end of the day, what's pen test? And I love your definition on what's pen test, but for me, it's
what is wrong?
Right. It is a way of prioritizing your work. It is this. I have a clear impact. I brought people from the outside, and from all the bugs that we have, these are the ones that were used to take over our company. There's not other definition to bring like third party. In the case of XBOW, it is the same to scale the ops. Of course, when I heard of XBOW for the first time, I thought, is pentest dead, right? And actually, I think more companies than ever are going to be able to have pen testing, because if you ask companies who are able to afford pen testing, you're only talking about the 10% of the biggest companies in the world. But if we are able to scale that, more people will be interested in understanding how they get bridged.
I'm trying to, right now, like when you said sort of the definition of pen test, I've been kicking around this phrasing in my head the past few days, and of course I'm realizing that it's not my idea, right? Because like it's really I think quite brilliant which immediately makes me suspicious, and I'm like, this is probably something I heard from Sergey Bradis or Perry Adams or somebody. But this notion of like, there's a series of possible states of insecurity, and the adversary effectively becomes a proof, right? Like you're proving that insecurity exists in this particular way of triggering this state. It's fascinating. I hadn't considered, right, how much you guys are basically doing for the pen test industry itself, right, as a substrate of it. I think in many ways because the kind of magical thinking that goes into AI right now just wants to collapse everything, right? Oh, pen testing, done. This other, bug bounties, over, right? Like everything's over. And you're like, okay, slow the fuck down, right? Like, yeah, maybe you're going to change the market dynamics, the costs, and so on. But no, that doesn't end. People still need to be able to prove that there is a state of insecurity and that needs to be fixed in some way, that somebody can get in without waiting for somebody else to point out that someone's been in there for 6 fucking months and you didn't know about it. How do you see, you've known this industry for forever, for longer than I've been around in it, right? How do you see the craft evolving, the larger sort of need and practice of the thing evolving, right? Like you're at the forefront of changing the tools. Where does this go?
So since you mentioned that I'm old and a veteran over here, I'll give some history heads up, right? So I would say first we, as pen testers, try to get enumeration tools and automated ways to find problems. Like, hey, we need this repetitive work being done. Then I would say we have, those are like Satan and the first vulnerability scanners. Then you have companies like Core, right, who had the problem of the same we have right now, proof, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, this scanner tells me there are a lot of vulnerabilities. And Core and team decided to showcase proof, right?
The old school exploit platforms. Right?
But it was the first time you could have a catalog. You had dedicated exploit writers. You were creating a library of content that would allow professionals to scale their operations and be more hacker, because not everyone can had exploit writers on their team, right? So you get proof on a product. Then we realized we were short of hackers, right?
It became a human problem, a human availability
problem. And what happened? Hackers became the marketplace. So bug bounty platforms showed up, and we brought people in to help us identify and exploit these problems. And I think right now we are coming back to the early 2000s. Yes,
interesting thought.
We have findings of problems, but now the problem is triaging. Now the problem is routing. Now the problem is this real or not?
Right.
So
reachability, exploitability, all this kind
and safety as well, because you're dropping an LLM in your app, and it has a mission. It will try to accomplish the mission no matter what. So the importance of how you do it, it's the same as in the early 2000s when you drop a junior pen tester doing work. It's super excited.
Right.
Tries to showcase proof. So how you do it, it's important as you would do it in the early 2000s.
That
makes sense?
That sinking feeling of going through the traces and figuring out it broke the law at some point, somewhere, right?
Well, out of scope, it's a thing normally.
There's an interesting piece to this. I saw Dino Daizovi post this on X. It said an LLM-discovered bug is public by definition.
Yeah. Wow. That's Linus Torvalds.
Right. So if you think about it in that way, patching, exploitability, reachability, like those pieces become the primary things, in addition to segmenting your network and making sure things are touching each other. I want to come back to the human thing, because this is what I'm hearing from the folks at Caliph is, listen, we still need this high-end expertise. And the guys at the high end of the exploiting space, the markdowns and those guys are going to be still going to be in high demand. What are you telling to students and junior pen testers coming into the space, people coming into the cybersecurity space, about what the focus should be on, what they should be learning? Is it, and in addition to that, are you worried at all that people are just are giving up on their own thinking and just leasing all the thinking to the machines? Like, where is your head at?
Let them answer the first one, man. You're like already trying to,
I love it. It is difficult to lose a craft, right? And it's difficult to relearn it. And I think most of us took a lot of manual work and hours figuring out what this industry is about and how we have to do it. I would say I'm second generation offensive security folk.
Right.
Where people from core,
Ivan Arce, those guys are like the first gen, right?
I mean, most people who might be listening to this might not know what core is, right? Like, that's legendary shit, right?
So I'll put it this way. They were the first company that made a product that had exploits, and it allowed you not only to exploit, but to pivot and set persistence and post-exploitation. Mm-hmm. This was 1999, yes. 2000, 2001. Right. This is previous to Metasploit. I can open an interesting conversation on the history of the history of. But the reality is that we needed tools to scale our ops. That's it. So what's the craft? It is knowing a pattern and you're finding the pattern. I remember when fuzzing came up, right? People were having collisions. People were using Twitter as a public sort of blockchain to showcase hashes. Yes, it's like, hey, I found this. So if you find the same hash, we should talk. I think the ability and why security is a privilege for only a few, right?
Yeah, but that art of learning is dead.
You could say the same with writing if you want.
That's dead too, I agree.
He's a writer, that's why he's this fucking concerned.
Do you enjoy reading AI slop?
No, not at all.
Well, there are things that I think slop works, and there are things that it doesn't. Dan Guido in his unprompt talk, I think gave at least something that I recall and I find super interesting, which is there are things that for us are symbolic, and we needed them to be made by humans. For example, a tattoo, right? You would get a tattoo done by a robot? No, you would prefer having, for a person, an artist, somebody that creates that moment something special. Right. But if you want to remove...
Oh, a tattoo.
A tattoo.
I'm trying to figure out what you were talking about.
Sorry.
And that's why I see
a tattoo. I was looking at him because I don't have any, but he has plenty.
Show the camera.
But if you want to remove one, you wouldn't care if it's a machine to remove it, because it's not as symbolic. I think we think we are artisans of something, and there are things that are more symbolic, and there are that are not. So sometimes bug hunting, it's something symbolic, and sometimes it's not. For companies who are only dealing with problems, it's not symbolic. For the craftsmanship, yes, it's symbolic. So it's two different perspectives on the same problem, but both suffer the cost of having low craftsmanship and the impact of not understanding the problem.
I'm loving the way you're putting it, man, because I mean, not only is that I think an apt metaphor, but it even speaks directly to the way most IT people would like talk shit about their own jobs, right? Like, I'm a fucking janitor. I'm just here trying to like clean up after these people. I could be doing cool stuff, but I spend all my time fixing configurations and mopping up after users that do dumb shit. I love the idea that we can just take a step back and say, hey, the AI is here to do anything and everything that feels janitorial, that feels like shit work, right? Your life, your contribution to this should be meaningful in an artistic sense, but even just in a fulfilling sense. And I'm glad you're bringing this up, because I feel like most of these podcasts are me just trying to inject some peace into Ryan's over-anxious heart and say, we're still necessary.
It's not only
okay.
that.
We're not on life support.
Even the craftsmen are worried about getting lazy. I mean, I saw Halvar today talk about it. He's like, listen, the reality and the truth is I'm using these models to do coding and everything, and now I'm worried. I'm really worried about how lazy I'm getting.
I saw that shit this morning.
I feel it.
I saw that shit this morning, and I had to stop myself from commenting.
Comment now.
I didn't want to do like a run by and then not answer, right? Because I was just like running around. But
it's real, though. I'm telling you.
It's not that it's real. I think this is a point at which, look, the craftspeople are who we should respect, and adore and want and cultivate and protect in an industry for their domain expertise. Let's remember the fact that, like, as human beings, we are terrible narrators of our own reality. Like, we're the least reliable people to speak about ourselves. So when I hear Halvar, if you look at what Halvar's saying, he's saying something very specific, which is that he feels like he's losing the ability to do these things himself because he's relying on these tools so much that he's not exercising that muscle often enough, so it's hard to do on your own. What I would argue is we've zoomed out to another level of abstraction, the same way that, like, if Kostin was here, I'm sure, and maybe Fede, I'm not trying to date you or anything, like to make you feel old, but there was a time people were writing, assembly by hand, and compilers came, and then you just wrote C. And the same people, and dude, I'm telling you, I have found books where this thing is discussed. The same fucking people are crying about, like, oh, you're soft if you stop writing assembly by hand and use one of these fucking compilers, right? Yeah. I think we're in that moment. And sorry, Fede, like, we've got you hostage in this, like, discussion about our AI anxieties, hoping that you'll soothe us. But I feel like you're seeing something firsthand. You're at one of these niche spaces, one of these industries that we've always known is about talent.
And it's disruptive.
And it's yeah. So you're at the front lines. Like, kind of give us that sense.
So, who is at XBOW? And I think it's an important way to showcase. I would say most of their pen test work could be the principal pen testers in any high-end company. And that's a group of people, of pen testers. Right. So, you have top 10 HackerOne bug bounty hunters setting the offensive capabilities of this. You have people who have been the spearhead of AI and CodeQL and Copilot in one place. So definitely when I joined, I felt old. And it was ground shaking, right? But yes, of course, I'm in love with the craft. That's why I run a conference. That's why I travel to places. That's why I want to meet people. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm a big complainer of what doesn't work. I'm a big complainer of repeating the same problem over and over and over again. So there is a book that I really like. It's about mountaineering, but the title is Conquerors of the Useless.
Conquerors of the Useless?
Yeah. It's like, what's the point of mountaineering, right? What's the point of going out there?
It's like Juanito going on a hike.
Honestly, this might answer an important question for me in my life.
What happens after an exploit gets patched, right, as an exploit writer? What happens with all the exploits that someone ever wrote and never were used at any point? What's a mission without the impact? And we are builders of tools, and tools have to be used. Carpenters spend a fair amount of time, perfecting their skill, but furniture became a privilege or something that only a few can afford. Only when you get some industrialization to that, you can get, better quality of life for a bunch of people who are not interested in carpentry. I think there is a story over there. I don't know if we're losing something or we're getting abstract, but there's always somebody into understanding how things work. That doesn't mean that everyone needs to be with the same level of depth. But that being said, I think hacking has a meritocratic culture. So if you're not building, if you're not knowing what you're building, if you're just a tool user, you're getting rejected. Right. But there's highly evidence, and I think Caleb and Ty has an important vision of this. He tweeted, I think yesterday, there are 4 Nginx RCs over there, right? At least they are documented, they're public, but from all the configs they found that almost none are
by default, right?
By default.
Okay, right.
Or they require a specific config. So what's an exploit that doesn't have delivery?
Right.
Just a proof of concept. Mm-hmm. So using AI to find bugs, it's an important part. And using AI to find if it's really exploitable, it's also important. Mm-hmm. But we need to understand the difference between craft, the love of the craft, and the impact and role we have in this industry.
I'm loving this discussion because I think you're managing. I think we tend to push the anxiety back in one direction, and it kind of feels like when you turned your back and the other part starts kind of falling apart. The way that I see you situating this is quite interesting. If you look at the meritocracy in the hacking space, or quote unquote meritocracy, right? The idea of the people who were elite hackers, right? You understood what you were doing. You were the opposite side was a script kiddie, right? Somebody who was just running tools, who didn't understand what was going on. It sounds to me like the tide is rising for all sides, right? Like part of our anxiety is that, we used to look at something and be like, oh, this is a script kiddie because it's just a few tools, there's no exploits, there's no whatever. Now you're saying, right, the same way that Core brought the capability to scale and to have a higher consistent ability to impact to a wider set of folks, we're looking at these script kiddies who are now getting to have the full gamut of the capabilities, right? Like the tool users were never going to be able to just call up Mark Dowd and be like, yo, I need real quick an exploit for this thing, right? You just didn't have that. Now to some degree, not quite Mark, but
remember HD Mirror and Metasploit? Everyone was freaking out, right? Oh, now I can get not a single bug or a number of bugs. Now I can get a framework that automates a big part of the operation. Getting exploited, and a bunch of kids took that to heart and created a bigger pentest industry because they didn't have the knowledge, but they have the curiosity or even the instinct of executing. I think that will happen the same with LLMs. Instinct and curiosity are human traits.
Right.
Where you need to allocate resources, either tokens, hours, or just focus, it's still key. It's not just blasting yourself around.
It seems like the introduction of a notion of completeness to pen testing, to the security assessment that you're getting. Because something that never rubbed me the right way, and this is where you can tell that I was not a pen tester, right, is I would look at it as, well, someone came in and chose one of many possible paths and showed you how you got fucked, and that company is going to go fix that one path. Right, and here there's still 12 other paths.
They're not even going to fix it. They're going to tell you that it's here.
Hopefully,
and then you pay again for them to verify that you tried.
Right, and you're hoping that the company, right, like will fix that, but you're still talking about that one path. What's interesting about the introduction of things like Core Impact and then like Metasploit and so on, is we start to introduce a notion of more or less completeness. Right, this is everything that's readily replicable that everybody knows about. So when you come to pen test, we're testing all of these known paths. The part we seem to be freaking the fuck out about is now you're saying we're also going to test these unknown paths, which you could not even have gotten on top of. And I wonder to what extent, right, the anxiety is horrendously misplaced, precisely in that you wish that after somebody pen tested you, that the only thing you had to worry about was an unknown 0 day and a downstream product that you don't control, upstream product you don't control, right? Like I'm assuming in most cases, you're walking in and going, oh yeah, we don't need an exploit. Here's like the 17 different ways that I can take over your AD. And we don't talk about that anymore.
Because I need to speak closer.
Very close.
Very close. I think there is an important aspect of what's hacking. Hacking is understanding the logic and how things work. Exploits are one tool among several that you could use for hacking. There are many known hackers that are known for not having exploit capabilities. Could be either social engineering, could be just understanding logic in a different fashion, or just reading the fucking documentation. Right? I have known professionals who are really into specific operating systems because they know or they spend a long time just knowing how they work, so they know it works. There's no reason for now that you can find an admin.
Right. That you should.
And
there's no reason you should.
Is that hacking? Is that hacking? Like the Verizon data breach report was, I don't know, released yesterday.
Yeah.
And I only had a quick glance, and what was the main difference? Hacking is no longer about info stealers and credential reuse, like people using pirated software and getting hacked through their VPN and shitty VPN vendor, but it's also getting hacked through vulnerabilities. For the first time in 10 years, vulnerabilities are the number one place. So there is a correlation.
Identity-related threats are going away? Just kidding.
I think the correlation is
should.
Not only the exploit, but it's the logic on who is using that.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, if it is a hammer and exploits is my new tool, they will use it.
Right.
There is, at least in my view, a lot of complaints with our industry, with how we can improve, but there is a big pushback on, we should not touch what's sacred. And what is sacred?
What is sacred? Right.
I still can't get over just the simple thought that an LLM-discovered bug is by definition public, which means that every pen test, like if you hire let's just pick a pen test shop, Bishop Fox today, right, and they find a bug in a remote code execution vulnerability in your thing, you have at least some sort of privacy that you're dealing with Bishop Fox in time to get it fixed. If by definition all those bugs are now public and available for everyone else to find, we're in a completely different space around what pen testing even looks like.
Consider the implication of what you just said. I think the only reason that we're freaking out, that it's the reason that potential victims and everyone now feels like like it's just a matter of fucking time. The reason they're freaking out is that, we never passed software liability, right? Like software development liability in any sort. But imagine a world where that was just the upstream maintainer's problem. And what we would be having is this, maybe we would be cheering the amount of fucking technical debt that was there in the first place. You were always getting shoved something packed full of vulnerabilities. And, it's not like the developers were being expressly malicious, but in some cases they were being systematically neglectful, right? Absentee parents. You just, fuck it, if it works, just shove it down there and who cares, right? So we're in a bit of a struggle phase precisely because that's been the reality and people were getting away with it. But it's almost like we're finally establishing a bit of a feedback loop of saying, hey, you sold me this thing. It's fucking Swiss cheese software. What the fuck, right?
There are many things that when we talk what's public or what's private, I think if there is something web-facing, there are many people who already know that and what's vulnerable or not. Maybe you don't. We don't consume our products based on their security. There is no ranking in our app store saying hey, this, from all the bank apps, this is the most secure one.
Right.
When you go to New York, right, or maybe other places in the States, you have a health signature saying hey, it's an A, B, C. I don't think you have lower than...
Like a rating.
Yeah, of a health inspection.
Right.
You would eat in something below a C, knowing that, this is it's dirty for New York,
It's probably 10 rats rather than 2 rats, but I get it.
But we don't consume we don't use technology in the same approach.
You think that changes? You think we'll start putting flags on?
I think eventually the main difference between vendors will be a feature that is called privacy and security, and how you can testify that. Mm-hmm. And you cannot do that.
Just adding another checkbox to what?
But the problem was it was a checkbox before.
Right.
Now you can actually have a proof. Right? Look, Ryan, your cynicism...
I'm asking the fucking questions.
No, I'm saying your cynicism, which has been rightly placed this whole time, is being addressed. Right? We were pissed that people could get a whatever certification for their software product, even though it has 17,000 O days.
FedRAMP.
And FedRAMP, right? what Fede is saying essentially is, well, you don't get away with that anymore, right? If now every LLM discoverable bug is public, which means that you can have a sort of attestation of the quality of that code. I mean, maybe they'll keep getting their like bullshit security certification on their code, but now we can also, right? You can get XBOW certified to like, yo, we've been testing the shit out of this code base, and like we're having a really hard time.
I think, and looking for the future, right? I think people in cybersecurity have strong opinions because they know companies from their inside, and they know how good, bad, or awful is
their own security is.
Their own security and engineering, right? That's why we have strong opinions on vendors. That's why we know who is doing things right and who is doing things wrong. My point is, sometimes if you're signing an NDA for a public website that you're doing an engagement and you find criticals, outdated stuff, and there is no pentester in Earth who is going to deny it, why it's private? It's because they don't want to spill the tea. But how many people already know this?
Right, right.
And that's the problem of security. It's visibility.
Before we run out of time, I want to ask you about the economics of it all. You guys did an analysis of using Mythos. I think you had access to Mythos and put out a blog post. And at the end of it, you talked about the cost. And you know, there were some competitive things there I don't want to touch. But do you see this new paradigm changing the economics of pen testing in general? Earlier in the show, you talked about pen testing is a very expensive thing, only available for companies that can afford it. And we're now democratizing it and having it available for everyone else. So we have more companies doing pen testing. In theory, it'll get more secure. Can you address some of the cost of that? Do you think it becomes much, much, much cheaper? Do you think the margins on like the traditional pen testing companies go away? Where do you see that?
It is difficult to put a price on how much a pen test actually costs. Like if you count the salary, you count the hours, you count the training of that person.
Because it's such a human...
It is such a human trait, right? I do agree that I think models would help lowering the cost of time. I think, at least at XBOW, and I'm not really into the Mythos because that happened before I was there, but it is how much investment you have to do to have a proper output. That doesn't mean that anyone with the same model can have the same results. You need some harness, you need some guidance, you need some instant put in the prompts, you need safety, you need a way of having the result verified. You know how to stop when it might go something off. But I do agree that this introduction and scale can opening up the market. Because if you're charging $400 the hour of a premium consultancy,
cheap price, by the way.
How many people can afford that, like lawyer hourly rate? But I don't think pentest is fading away. I think more people will adopt pentest if we make it easier and verifiable for engineers, not for just cybersecurity professionals.
Before I let you go, Buenos Aires, Argentina, my favorite place in the world, and also because of this rich traditional, rich history of hacking and the early birth of all this pen testing space, we know of all the big names and so on. What's the vibe there now? What's the vibe there now in this environment?
Well, just in for some context, because Ryan, I can't believe we brought Fede, and this is how like excited and hypey we are about XBOW, that Fede can be sitting here. We're at the first Ekoparty in Miami, and now you're asking him at the tail end, being like, "Oh yeah, how's shit in Argentina?" Right? Like,
I'm like, how can I wrap up the show without even asking about this shit? Like, so this is crucial
for folks that don't know. Fede and his team, right? Like, Ekoparty is, I describe it to people as like the DEF CON of Latin America, right? It's like you guys have been running for more than 20 years now. I'll admit something. It was my very first security conference that I ever attended, ever.
I just hated the name because I couldn't get my company to pay to send me to a party in Argentina.
Yeah, but so you've been at the heart of this thing, right? In it's not just another country. For folks that don't know the context in Latin America, if you look at all of Latin America, I would argue that Argentina is like the hub of security talent. We've gotten amazing people out of there.
Companies.
And entire companies out of it. It's like a real healthy ecosystem. And I think you have to give you credit, you and your team, for essentially building that ecosystem and maintaining it over 2 decades. So when we ask you this, just for folks to know, right, like there's a certain weight behind having built that community and nourished it up to this point. So yeah, how's the vibe in Argentina?
I would say my biggest hack has been allowing folks to get into hacking easier than we did. I think when we thought of a conference, people think about the exploits, about the tools, and for me, I think about the ladder and the bridges that we built. Mm-hmm. Today, when I was introducing Aaron, I met Aaron Pornoy 2008. Dragos was doing Bacon.
Pontoon, I was just telling Juanito earlier, the guy was the creator of Pontoon hacking contest. Yeah.
You know, Aaron came to Buenos Aires in 2008 for Bacon, a conference that Dragos and Cord made at the time, and it was right next to Ekoparty 2008, right?
Dragos Ruyu for people listening.
Yeah, Kansas West, shouts to Dragos. And he said, hey, Fede, there's this amazing talent in Argentina. You know, we're doing stuff in Vegas that makes no sense, where people that we want to connect are here, they speak Spanish. And so to put in context, in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, we have Core that had a dedicated exploit writing team. They had, people who crafted the tools that even today's ransomwares are using, like Impacket. Mm-hmm. You have Immunity, you have NCC, you have all these people that were into the offensive work that I think it's aligned to our philosophy of life in Argentina, of breaking rules. But I think Ekoparty built the stage so they can show off their talents. And we build those bridges. Aaron was a key part on getting Ekoparty to the next stage by supporting it. He brought CDI to Buenos Aires and made, I would say, arguably one of the strongest supporters of Ekoparty at that time. And I always that I can, I'm try to put that out because Aaron's shy. And as you were telling Juan, he made Pound to Own along other people, of course.
I shook his hand this morning. I'm like, oh yeah, he's this cool dude. And Ryan's like, he fucking started Pound to Own. I'm like, oh no, I had no idea.
It was originally with Dragos doing the ZDI. He was at ZDI at the time.
So what's the environment right now? So at Expo, it's we call it like the World Cup because it's the first time people from Immunity and people from Core are on the same roof.
Oh shit!
So
this
is
like
Bloods and Cribs suddenly showing up to the same.
So at least for me, walking, and since I have been running Ekoparty for a long time, I know kids that grew up and are now kicking ass. So I'm like privileged to see them grow in their careers. Right. And I also see senior people that I always looked up working side by side with me right now. So I think the environment right now, it's revitalized. I don't have that word. It's now back alive. Yeah. I have been speaking for a long time during these 2 days.
And for context, how big is the Ekoparty conference in Miami? In Buenos Aires?
So Ekoparty in Miami, we had 500 attendees in these 2 days for us, and was part of these bridges that we're building. Why Ekoparty in Miami? There's a lot of Latin crowd, and for us, bringing ourselves here, it's a way of connecting our community to the biggest industry hub, which is the States. Yeah, it took only 20 years, but we did it, and we're here. Buenos Aires, Ekoparty has 10,000
that's the context I wanted to provide. When I went down there 2 years or 3 years ago and I saw the size of the registration, I was blown away.
Oh, I mean, look, it's this is something that Fede and we discussed last time I was in Argentina, and I can't recommend for folks that are researchers.
The rite of passage.
Well, for folks that are researchers, right, and looking at CFPs, I have spoken in a whole lot of conferences over the past 13, 14 years. the only conference that, like, the best possible treatment I've ever gotten as a speaker, and not as a keynote or whatever, just as a random-ass speaker, has been going to Ekoparty. And, you know, it's not bullshit. It's not like, oh, you send a luxury driver. It's more like, I've got this amazing person who's been doing, like, insane security research for 20 years who's like, oh, let me take you to try this ice cream. And you're like, bro, I'm sure you have great shit to do. Thank you. Like, it's fucking awesome. Are you serious?
Yes.
Dude, they cooked for us, like, the asado at, like, you know, Fede is literally there with all his friends, like, cooking a fucking Argentinian barbecue for us. It's so warm, and it has the vibe that I think everyone is right now rightly crying about.
Real
the fact that, like, DEF CON's a convention now, right? So, like, you just don't. I feel bad for the people that never got to experience the real DEF CON. I feel like I barely got to experience the real DEF CON, but Ekoparty's alive and kicking, and it's still that vibe.
Yeah, if you look around in this room here, the other half of this room are villages of, like, just traditional old school hacking vibes happening.
Dude, I was fucking cursing like a sailor up there, and there's children just, like, hanging out in the front row. I'm like, ooh, this is my bad. All right.
I do think that Ekoparty is the excuse so we can meet up, share, and be who we are. I think when you go down to Argentina and you fly over, people, as you said, they're fans of you visiting. Really? So I like my private definition of Ekoparty. It's our birthday. We'll be on front, hugging and kissing people and trying to make sure they have a drink or where they're going, to be safe, to go to the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Because for us, it's a privilege to get people visit us. We are not close by. We see things from far. But you know what we realize? That we have a lot of things to tell. Mostly we consume a type of hacking culture, but hacking is globally. And I think, at least for Ekoparty, we did it the Latin way. So I'm happy that you guys are in Ekoparty Miami, and you were able to see Ekoparty Buenos Aires as well.
Thanks for having us, and obviously I have to particularly thank you for, like, the keynote and giving me an opportunity to kind of talk my shit for way longer than I should have. I think I was up there for like 20, 30 minutes after I was supposed to get off stage. I think something that you're not getting credit for, and you should, and I give you immense credit for, is when I went down there, you and I talked a lot about, like, VC investing and starting companies, and something that blew my mind is I've always known to respect the Argentinian backbench of expertise, and you know, you guys are actually producing a talent pipeline, which is something that very few countries have, right? Like Israel, Argentina, or, like, you know, places that come to mind where you go, you're consistently getting talented people out of there. It was fascinating to me to talk about this with you. I was talking to some VCs, I was talking to some, like, big investors who were talking about deploying funds of, like, billions of dollars. And I'm like, Fede, how much would it take to, you know, if I got these guys to put, I don't know, 50 million in a fund or 100 million in a fund, do you think, like, what is that? Like, you start, you know, 2-3 strong companies in Argentina?
I would say more.
Yeah.
Definitely more.
You blew my mind. It was just like the disparity in the economics, I think, shows how little we're exploiting this resource, right? We all know of companies that have had an Argentina office, like Immunity, for example, right? Who had, like, real talent was there. It wasn't like you were outsourcing to India and it just had bodies.
Still is a big feeder into these pen test shops, right? A lot of it is outsourced to
pen
talent.
Test,
yeah.
But most of the big companies, it's not like, I don't know if there's, like, a big Google office in Buenos Aires, you know, or any
or
other.
Amazon, your own local, like,
Amazon. Most companies
they
don't
normally
hire
do
there.
marketing or sales or advertisement,
right.
At least the FANGs, but you don't have engineering offices down there.
It blows my fucking mind, man, because it's real talent. It's not like, oh, there's some good kids you can shape up. You're getting whole grown people doing real fucking research, presenting at Ekoparty, who are, I'm sorry, but, like, very cheap compared to hiring literally any asshole in the U.S., right?
We use the word exploiting. We're not exploiting.
Yeah, you're not exploiting these people enough. I'm sorry. I'm like, the reverse colonizer, right?
I'll change something on the topic. I think, one, it's the talent that we have, and the other, it's the entrepreneurship you can get.
Right.
VC-backed type companies are not something that we're used to in Latin America, the least on Argentina. If you're doing a VC hyperscale style, you're doing the Uber of something or stuff that are for B2C. You're not doing deep tech. If you're doing deep tech, it's more small, and you go to SF, you go to Austin. That's why we have, like for example, Bercel, Guillermo Roach. It's an Argentinian, but he had to go to SF to take Next.js to what is now. My point is, for example, XBOW, it's able to grab the best talent that is in the world in offensive work, because I'm talking up people who don't want to leave Argentina.
Right.
And they are top 10 in most of the bug bounties. They are premium type of people. So, of course, the salary is a thing, but being able to do it in your own country,
exactly,
it's something that the people that have seen it have grown thanks to that. And that's something probably people are more low-key. Yeah. So come to Argentina. We have barbecue and wine.
Dude, look into that camera and close the show with some shout-outs. Like, who are the people that deserve some love?
Well, first, I'm using my space along these two...
In between
two problems in Miami states to shout out all the stuff that makes Ekoparty, not only the founders that we get the credit. I have people who have helped me all my life to succeed in my crazy endeavors. Ekoparty, it's the most visible one. There is so much talent and passion along these people that it's difficult to transmit. That's what they're happy, because you get people excited. Argentina is such a beautiful country, and Latin America as well. We have so much to give. So I can't single out because I don't want to miss people. Right. But what I can say is people who know about Latin America and their talent and their passion can go really, really far besides whatever technology is there.
Dude, I'll go further. I'll take your thing further in saying, if I was saying anything about the VC side, is for you motherfuckers with deep pockets looking for real talent, if you're not, you're missing out on probably the deepest bench of fresh talent by not just making it possible to hire in Argentina. I'm not saying all of Latin America.
We'll set up shop down there.
Dude, if I was a VC, I would take the money that you give two of these fucking mediocre-ass companies and just go to Argentina and start 50 of them. You know, it's just... Anyways, thanks for being Argentina's greatest ambassador in cyber, right? Thank you for Ekoparty. Thank you for having us. You're huge stands, and hopefully we can visit you again in the very near future.
Fede, appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure to talk and shit talk about what we do. Something is for sure. Passion, no matter the tools, passion is what is going to take us to the next step. And talent. So we have to build that bridge. We have to build that road. We don't know where it's going to take us, but it took us here.
Fair enough. Good place to be.
Yeah.